Lordy, lordy, lordy. This is gonna be fun.
Here we go.
Here we go. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the latest episode of the Key and Mang audio experience. I'm your host, Mang, as always, joined by my co-host, Key. Key, what's good?
What's up, Mang? How you doing?
I'm chilling, can't complain. Today we're gonna talk about Twitter fingers, PT Twitter. Kind of wanted to start it out with a tweet that you posted actually. Going to a physical therapist who doesn't lift is like getting driving lessons from someone who never drove. And I kind of just wanted to open up to you first to let you kind of clear the air of what you meant by that post and what you were trying to send across.
That was a gem. Oh man, that was the time. What did I mean by that? All I meant was if you're going to a physical therapist for a injury related to your training, related to lifting, and your therapist doesn't lift, it's like going to someone who hasn't drove and they're teaching you how to drive. So they don't have the experience, and I feel like yes, you can help somebody if you have the knowledge of the list, but I feel like it's different. It hits different when that person actually practices that, does that, and is trying to help you. I feel like that increases your buy-in and like you just feel more comfortable. And I tweeted that not to come at any other PTs. I was tweeting that to target my audience, like the people I want to work with, not the people I work with in my 9 to 5. Yes, I do work with all types of people who do not have an interest in lifting, but with my Keep It Fit business, I work with lifters, people who are in the gym doing certain movements. And I feel like if you're going to a PT who doesn't have that experience, you're doing yourself a disservice. That's all I meant.
I got you. And I thought we saw some tweets over the last couple of weeks of people posting some things kind of similar as testaments and getting some backlash. And this tweet got a lot of attention on Instagram and Twitter. And I kind of wanted to make sure that you had the opportunity to explain where you was coming from and the message you was trying to communicate to the people that you're trying to work with. So I just wanted to make sure you had that opportunity first. And then going into just the kind of PT Twitter or PT Instagram and just kind of the kind of backlash that you got from, what kind of things were you seeing from people commenting or on Instagram, on Twitter, based on that tweet?
I was seeing a lot of things that did not quite make sense to me. Things that were taken out of context. So I remember there was a comment, I don't know if this was on Instagram, on Physiogram's page, or on Twitter, but they're like, oh, so if you have cancer, you can't go to an oncologist that doesn't have cancer. Like they can't help you if they don't have cancer, or like somebody with one hand can't help somebody with two hands. Like very ignorant comments like that didn't really make sense. And then I had some people actually agreeing, saying like, if you're a PT, you should be into exercise and fitness. So kind of on both ends, but it was more so negative comments and just things that were taken out of context, basically. I was being called the ableist. And I think that PTs are the only profession that doesn't feel like you should see somebody that specializes in what you need help for. Like you go to a doctor and you have cardiac problems, I'm pretty sure you're not only going to go to your PCP, you're going to go to a cardiologist too. And I think in PT, I guess that's not advocated for. I don't understand why, but I think there is importance in having somebody that specializes in something that not only increases outcomes, but it increases the patient's or client's confidence in you getting them to that outcome. So I didn't really see why it was an issue. I do understand the whole ableist thing, but if you read my bio, if you follow me, if you took any time to read anything, you would know that I wasn't talking to PTs and I was talking to a very specific audience. And when my tweet got screenshotted and posted somewhere else, none of that context was provided, and it made me look like, I don't think it made me look anyway, but people didn't know what I was talking about. So they just ran with it. But that's social media for you. So
yeah, you were talking about how if someone had a heart condition, you want to not just only see your PCP, but also a cardiologist. And that had me thinking about how in school, feel like it's we have to take that back to like school though. Like that's how PT school is created. Like you're molded to be a generalist, and you're supposed to do X amount of years before you start to specialize and go down a track. So I think if there's hundreds of thousands of PTs out there and they've all been taught to go first, you gotta, go pay your dues and go do the generalist track, and then you can go specialize. But now that there's new age of, I don't know, I don't want to say if new age is the right word, but there's more PTs now that know what they want to do right out of school, and they don't want to be a generalist, they want to specialize. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think people should have the opportunity to specialize if they know what they want to do. And if they want to take the general route and then do it and then specialize later, that's also an option. But I just didn't kind of understand why other people were like coming at you kind of disrespectfully. And I didn't really feel like homework was done to make sure that to see what you was like, what you're about and what you're trying to accomplish. Because I feel like if prior research was done prior to commenting on the post or reacting to the post, and I think the kind of outcomes that we saw from those tweets or screenshots would be a little different, because they would have more context into who you are trying to work with, what you want to work with, and trying to just niche down that one. I think that's kind of foreign to a lot of people in the PT game about niching down and specializing, because that's not what we're taught in school.
Exactly. And it's funny, it's ironic because we're also not taught a lot of exercise prescription in school. So why would you not want to go to somebody who has experience in that, not only for themselves, but for like helping other people? Like I'm not going to a average or regular physical therapist if I have pain with my training or anything, because I already know what the schooling is like for physical therapists when it comes to like exercise prescription. When it gets out of that like post-op or like early on phase, like people who actually want to return to very specific activities, I want to go to somebody who does that, and our schooling doesn't prepare us for that. And all the time, if you look on PT Twitter, any thread, and it's like, what would you change about the curriculum? A lot of the answers are saying exercise prescription. Like they didn't learn enough of that. They don't really know how to progress exercise. They don't know how to modify things. So with that being said, why would you not want to promote going to a PT that does that? Like I don't think it makes sense. I think people just want to comment and look for holes in everything you say.
But I think it's also that you get used to being and seeing what you see. Like if you scroll through Instagram, you're seeing a lot of the same stuff. It's just things that you normally agree with. And when you see something kind of out of the box like that, or not out of the box, I don't like out of the box, but like something different.
What's a box?
yeah, we had that discussion a couple of weeks ago. What's a box? But when you see something different on your feed, you kind of instinctively go back to what you know. You know what I mean? Like you're not gonna really. It's really hard to try and press yourself and go outside and think about where is this person coming from? Let me put myself in their shoes and see where they're coming from. And then I think that's why it's so easy when you see things that are different or outside the box to just bash it, because it's not what you're used to. It's not what you're used to seeing. And it's hard to get a different perspective and put yourself in someone else's shoes.
Maybe it's just me, but when I see things that are different, I like to know why. Like, although I may not agree, I always want to ask why. Like, why do you think that? And I feel like you don't have to agree with anything I put out there, but I think just a simple question of like, this is what I think. Well, can you explain why you feel that way? Like, that works better. And I understand like social media isn't gonna be like that all the time, but I feel like as a profession, we need to do a better job of not labeling things as like very like outlandish terms and just start asking why, instead of like just assuming that you know what somebody meant or taking things out of context. And I know there's certain accounts that don't really allow you to do that. They don't really promote that, but I think that's something people need to start doing on social media and like use it more productively as opposed to trying to like tear somebody down. I mean, I really wasn't bothered by the comments, but like somebody that, like, say like a student or somebody who just started social media and posted something like that, and like they didn't mean any harm by it. Like you can stop them from not even want to be on social media anymore. Like little things like that don't need to happen.
And if you get the opportunity to engage in that dialogue of asking why with somebody, something you don't agree with, you don't have to agree with them just based on their rationale. Like, but now you have an insight onto how they're thinking, what they're thinking, and why they're communicating it in a certain way. And now it can kind of just open your eyes to, hey, someone doesn't think the way I don't agree with this, but now I just learned something about this person. I learned a little bit about how their thoughts work when it comes to this or that. And I think that's a valuable experience as well. Like you don't have to agree, but you can still learn a lot from just opening yourself up to having those discussions. But like you said, I don't think social media, that's like the boring stuff. Like we've been talking about like the journey and the process in some of our earlier episodes, and that's not, this is, I think it's more fun on social media to be more combative and controversial and kind of sticking with status quo and taking the time to ask yourself why, or ask why someone might be thinking this. That's not as fun. It's not as controversial because someone will probably engage if you decide to ask, why do you think like this? What are your thoughts here? They will engage and give you an answer. And I think that's not as, I don't know, not as appealing as, oh, does that mean if I have one hand, I can't treat a person with two hands? Like, you know what I mean? So,
my thing is, even if you don't want to have that conversation or don't agree, like keep scrolling. Like there's too many other things in our profession to be worried about, to be commenting on tweets like that really aren't malicious. So I think people,
Go ahead.
I just think people need to allocate their time better instead of trying to be combative on social media.
You brought up that point a couple of times now. Things like PT work. Us as a profession worrying about the wrong things. Can you kind of talk about some of the things that you feel like we should be worrying about?
In regards to this topic, like in regards to the comments that I were getting, they're like, "Oh, this isn't inclusive. Like this is ableism." I get like being inclusive is good, but honestly, some things aren't meant for everybody, and I don't mean that in a mean way, but like when you're talking about building a business or like building a brand, you don't want to cater to everybody. You don't want to be inclusive to everybody because then you're talking to nobody. You know what I mean? So with that being said, I think that our profession needs to realize that like we aren't trying to sell to other PTs. We're trying to, one, raise the awareness of our profession, but also sell to our target audience. Now, your target audience may be different from my target audience, and that's okay. But you got to realize when I'm posting things, I'm not posting it for you, I'm posting it for those people. So I feel like we worry too much about what the other person is posting and like trying to find holes in that instead of like raising the awareness of our profession or focusing on who you want to help. That's one thing. Also, talking about being inclusive as a profession, we're not included in a lot of things. Like something as simple as I was at Athleta trying to get a discount, and they have like a healthcare discount, and PTs don't qualify for that discount last time I checked. But you know who does? Trainers do, nurses do, I think respiratory therapists do. So only reason I got the discount was because I have my CSCS, but we're not included in a lot of things. Then you talk about the doctorate degree. We're not really even viewed as a doctor. We're not included in doctors. Like those are things that I feel like PT should be worried about instead of like picking fights on Twitter with other PTs. Like it doesn't make sense. Or like saying if like manual therapy is more effective than Therex or vice versa. Like little like stupid things like that. We worry about the wrong things and as opposed to actually being included in what really matters. And I think if our profession wants to grow, like that needs to stop. And we need to focus our attention on what's going to move the needle forward, and having like pages that screenshot your tweet and post it up there for us to argue with each other, that's not conducive to anything, like at all. So that's what I mean by worrying about the wrong thing.
I hear you on that. I also think another thing that we should be kind of focusing on that we don't is the debt to income ratio.
Oh my God.
You're making like, you investing 150 to 200K to go into school. and then you coming out, you have a doctorate title, you're a DPT, and you getting paid $70K, maybe. And you invested all this money to get into school and to be a doctor and to be able to read x-rays and make medical decisions, but you getting paid what, I mean, what you're getting paid is not indicative of what the responsibilities that you hold. And
I think, go ahead, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say it's not indicative of the investment you made to get to that point.
Mm-hmm. So, and I don't think people kind of understand the kind of value that PT can provide when you have someone who has a total knee replacement or ACL surgery, who thinks they're never going to be able to return to their sport or be able to bend down to pick up their grandkid, and you're able to help them get to that point. Like, I don't think you can put a price tag on that, but that's a lot of value that you're providing to that person. And I think we don't really do a good job of sticking up for showing the value that we provide and being appraised at the value that we do provide, if that makes sense. Like, I don't think we're close to compensated for what we provide if you're able to do a good job. Now, if you're don't do anything and you just give ice and stem and modalities and you like, all right, you straight, you're gonna get to where you need to just by that, then I ain't saying you should get paid. But if you can provide results for your people, then I think that should be what you're more concerned about, because you can't survive on a 70K salary being 150, 200K in debt. Like, there's too much that needs to be taken care of. And that's why you got people like leaving the career or going into real estate or going into different career path, going for the PT, MD route to get in more debt just because they think the return on investment is going to be higher if you're an MD versus a PT. Like, that don't make any sense. You already invested 200K into school and you want to go into 500K more just to get another doctorate title. Like, that don't make any sense to me. So I think that's another thing we kind of got to make sure that we keep progressing our profession and making sure that we're providing good outcomes for the people that we're trying to serve and work with, but also make sure that we can take care of ourselves and not feeling too burnt out after 2 months, 3 months, 6 months, and making sure that we can kind of keep pushing the profession forward.
I agree. And that comes with, I think our value would be increased if people actually knew what we do. A lot of people don't know what we do. At least twice a week, I get somebody like, oh, did you have to do a certification program for this? Or they're asking like for the schooling. They don't even know that we hold doctorate degrees. And it's crazy. It's like you put in all this school. It's like a smack in the face, low key. You put in all this school and then you work with your patients and they're like, oh, you went to school for a certificate? Like, yeah, I'd be like, yeah, I went to school for a very expensive piece of paper. Like, at that point, it gets annoying. So that like tends to want to be my response, but can't say that. But it is like we're undervalued, and I mean, I get it. Like, people don't know what we do, but still, that's why I feel like we as PTs need to stop worrying about the wrong stuff and start worrying about what's really important, and that's what's really important. I see is that, like, a lot of times physical therapists don't have an identity outside of being a physical therapist. So when you see somebody, a PT, doing something that doesn't align with your view of that box a PT is supposed to be in, it's different, and you get combative, or you say like, you can't do that, or you shouldn't be doing that, or you need to cater to this person because you're a PT. I think just like not having an identity outside of being a PT is what people have an issue with, and that causes them to be very stagnant, because there's more to your life than, at least my life, than just being a PT. So I feel like I can do other things. I feel like I am able to get into stocks, real estate. I'm able to help the people I want to specifically help, even though school taught me to be a generalist. Like, I feel like I'm very flexible in that way, and a lot of PTs aren't. So when they see other younger PTs doing that, it's like different.
Do you feel like that's because of the exposure that you've had to the different avenues that you can take in the PT world that other people might not have yet been exposed to?
Yeah, definitely. Because I don't think that without the exposure, I probably wouldn't know that it's possible. But after I've seen it so much and like done my own like research, I know that it's possible because I've seen it. But at the same time, just because you haven't seen that, when you do see it for the first time, you don't just bash it. You know what I mean? Like, because at that point you're exposed to it, you're just rejecting it now. So
Yeah.
some people choose to just ignore it, you know?
Mm-hmm.
But yes, exposure is definitely the reason.
Yeah, no, I think that's the first kind of the first step. Like some people just don't know like the options that you can make to provide more values, but also if I don't think having more money is a problem because it allows you to have more time to do the things you want to do. I don't think anyone who would say no to making an extra 75K a year just by getting involved in marketing or emails or podcasts. Like 75K, make a good investment in a lot of different things that you want to get invested to. And I think it'll also allow you to dive more into your passions, and that'll help with kind of being more not burned out with PT and not being PT being solely your life, because there's other things to life than just your job. And so I think
Exactly.
if you have more time where you don't have to hustle, like you obviously are going to produce when it's time for you to be on the clock, but when you're off the clock, you got time to invest into other things that you're passionate about. Because before, when you was a kid, you were dreaming about being an astronaut, you were dreaming about uh, being a business owner, you're dreaming about a lot of different things. And when you get older, you just kind of those dreams kind of get stripped away and you get used to the 9 to 5 grind. And if you chilling and you have nothing to worry about, then that's cool. But if you struggling like a lot of other people, when the average PT school debt is 150K, then I don't think I think being exposed to ways to make more money, to provide, to make your life more happy, because you only live once. And we have the opportunity to impact a lot of people. But you got to make sure you take care of yourself and that your cup is still full before you start trying to empty it out to other people and fill other people's cups.
Exactly. And I also think that goes back to school. Like school doesn't really like promote being anything other than like a PT or a director. They're like, oh yeah, I can see you being a director of a clinic or whatever. With the salary is not much more. You just have more responsibilities. Like they don't ever tell you what you actually can do. Especially in 2022, like the opportunities are endless with PT, and I feel like that should be included in curriculums now, like fostering that like creativity and allowing people to do things that isn't normal for, or like isn't a normal PT responsibility, you know. I think students should be exposed to that in the school system, not just on social media, and that'll help to normalize things. But that also goes back to who's actually teaching us and the things they're teaching us. Like they don't even know what is out there, so like how can we expect them to teach it? So I think it does go back to the school system.
Yeah, and I think that's you could have a whole another discussion on on changes in the school system that you like to see. I think we will have that discussion in the future. Yeah, so Key, I know we started with reading off your tweet. That kind of started off this conversation, and seeing the tweets that have been posted since about things that we see going on PT Twitter. But I wanted to know from you, like, what were your big takeaways from that whole Twitter experience and seeing your tweet screenshotted on different social media platforms?
My takeaway was to keep being me. You know, I think that tweeting that it kind of got rid of people who that don't need to be following me, and it kind of exposed me to people who actually do want to work with me and agree with what I'm saying and want help from a PT who does what they're trying to get better at. So um, I think it was good. I just think I got to keep being authentic, and if people don't like it, they can unfollow, unsubscribe, you know. But if they do like it, I'm here. I'm gonna keep posting content. So it didn't really change anything, you know. It just raised awareness to what the profession needs to focus on.
Didn't you also gain followers from that tweet too?
I gained followers, but it was the wrong followers. Like I'm not on Twitter or Instagram for PTs. I actually stopped following as many PTs after that because I'm like, I'm not catering my content to physical therapists. I'm not trying to sell to physical therapists. So if you're a PT and I follow you, I actually probably like your content and find you inspiring. So yeah, I gained following, but it wasn't really the right following I was looking for on Instagram, at least on Twitter, yes. Instagram, I got a lot of hate mail and like PTs cursing me out through voice messages, but it's totally fine.
Well, if they listen to this one, I hope that they decide to take a second to think about why they're deciding to bash a person's opinion and take the time to think about, all right, where are they coming from? Why might they be thinking this way? Why am I thinking the way I'm thinking? Why do I have these feelings about this tweet, or why is this triggering me? And just taking the time to have that discussion. Because I think taking the time to kind of bash somebody else in the same profession as you doesn't help our profession grow. That's not what we need right now. We got a lot of climbing up the ladder to do, and I think going after other PTs is not the way to go about it. We got to lift each other up. So I think that was one of the big things that I took away from seeing that tweet and seeing the responses to that tweet, and how we have kind of a ways to go before we get the profession to where it should be in my eyes, because it is very valuable in my head.
I agree. Very valuable. You just have to help who we think we can help best. You don't have to feel like you're a generalist. You can definitely be a specialist and do not feel bad about it.
Yeah. Look, at the end of the day, just be you, and people are gonna love you for it, or they might not like you for it, but whoever you're with, they're gonna appreciate that you are being your authentic self, and hopefully can pass that on to whoever else you're working with as well.
Agreed. The show goes on.
Yeah, the show goes on. Well, on that note, wanted to say thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of the Key and Mang audio experience. And comment, like, subscribe, leave your takeaways on we'll post this on the story, and leave your takeaways to this episode as well. And we'll continue to bring out new episodes every Monday. So until the next one, peace.
Peace.